An earthquake like the one that rocked Los Angeles on Monday causes far more than devastating physical damage. Its emotional and psychological impact can be equally devastating and just as real. Dr. Richard Scott is a clinical psychologist who, as director of the Disaster Response Network with the American Red Cross, assists trauma victims. He's joining us this morning from our Burbank bureau. Dr. Scott, good morning to you.
Thank you, and it's Robert. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I apologize for that. Robert Scott.
Okay.
Can
Yes,
you describe for me the overall psychological impact of a disaster like this on its victims?
Disasters like this cause a very predictable series of reactions, and I think what's important that we recognize in California here, especially in Southern California and Los Angeles, we have been through so much in this city that we're at an overload stage. So the typical responses and reactions are a little bit exaggerated because of the stress we've been under. It's been a rough couple years here in Los Angeles.
So it makes it even worse given the culmination of events.
Absolutely. We're looking at almost a cumulative effect in terms of the stressors that we've had. We've had firestorms, floods, drought, social unrest and riots. So this current disaster is really taking a toll on the emotions of this city. We're really seeing right now, and this is a very typical response, a lot of shock and dismay, disorientation. As time goes on, we're going to see a lot more of the sadness and hopelessness and disillusionment kind of surface, and that's very predictable.
Really, you mean, Dr. Scott, that as time goes on, people won't start to feel better about the situation, that some depression might set in? I'm surprised at that.
No, the first couple days, really, we're in what we call the honeymoon stage. People are very glad that they've survived, the ones that have. And it takes a while before the adrenaline and all the chemicals that are pumped into your system under such extreme stress get a chance to dissipate. And then people start to feel stronger emotions, anxiety, fear, sadness, hopelessness. So it actually gets a little worse before it gets better.
I understand that children, the elderly, and disabled individuals are hardest hit. Why is that?
Well, we look at those individuals as the high-risk groups because of the nature of where they are developmentally. Children are very vulnerable. Although they're quite resilient, you know, the children of this city have been through quite a lot and continue to go through quite a lot. So children are high risk because of their vulnerability, and the level of their cognitive development isn't quite, you know, where an adult would be. And the elderly, because of their age and they're set in their ways, and a lot of them may have disabilities and physical conditions, you know, that group too is at high risk. So we need to pay a special attention to those groups. In addition, we've got, we always have to look at people who have had previous traumas and losses in their life. They're also at high risk. So we've got, we've mobilized a tremendous amount of psychologists and mental health professionals, and we're working in a very relatively new field. We have, for the first time in the United States, a disaster response network. It's a network of volunteer psychologists and mental health professionals that have come together to provide community support in disasters throughout this nation. It was developed by the American Psychological Association and the Red Cross.
What kinds of things, Dr. Scott, do you tell people, or how do you counsel them, or how do you help them work through this?
Well, it's going to be tough, but you know, we have a pretty much a predictable plan for helping people, and one of the key factors is letting them know that what they're going through is very normal, that they're having normal reactions given these very abnormal events. And when you teach people, or you let people know that what they're experiencing is predictable, it's normal, it's a part of the healing process, it does so much to help people to relax and start to recover. So that's one of the key messages. The second thing is, you can't talk enough about this. Social support, getting together with family, friends, relatives, talking it out, that concept of ventilation is very important for survivors of disaster.
The recovery must be complicated by the fact that these aftershocks continue, and I can only imagine how they must freak people out.
Absolutely. You know, natural disasters, we have a saying that it tends to bring out the best in people, and and man-made disasters tend to bring out the worst. But for natural disasters, earthquakes have a particular psychology, and it really checks into this very primordial reaction in us because these aftershocks keep reactivating our stress responses. So it's one of those disasters that really is a tough one to get over. Every time we start to relax a little bit and start to recoup, we'll get an aftershock, and it just reactivates all those emotions and fears again.
All right.
It's a tough kind of disaster.
You got a lot of work ahead of you. I know that for sure. Dr. Robert Scott, thanks so much. Sorry I called you Richard. It's
That's
Robert
okay.
Scott. Thanks so much for talking with us this morning.
You're welcome, Katie.